Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to be talking about planting in the fall and why in many ways it is actually the best time of year to plant if you're in the southern part of the U.S. I've got a Goshiki Osmanthus. I've covered this plant in a video on its own if you want to look it up. This is a beautiful evergreen, leafy evergreen shrub that has beautiful foliage on it. Goshiki means 5 colors in Japanese. This plant is always turning different shades of yellow and white and green and pink. Very, very interesting plant. Left to its own, it'll get about 5 feet tall and slightly narrower than that. Usually has kind of an upright, narrow habit. It can be kept much smaller than that. I've got this Delta Fusion crepe myrtle over here next to it that has black foliage on it, and I think that black foliage in this Goshiki Osmanthus are going to look great together right here. I'm just planting a plant for this video. If you want to see more on Goshiki Osmanthus, you can look that up on my channel, and I cover it quite a bit more thoroughly. Beautiful variegated evergreen shrub. As I plant this, I want to go through all the reasons in which this is the best time of year to actually plant this plant. It's about the first week, late in the first week in November in my area in North Carolina. I'm in zone 7B, and I think anywhere from zone 7 down to 10, this is actually the best time of year to be planting shrubs and trees especially. There are some exceptions to this, and I landscaped for a long time, and I kind of know some of those exceptions of things that you probably should wait until spring to plant. So I'll talk about that as I get this planted. One issue with fall planting, there's a good in that the soil tends to be more moist and we have to do quite a bit less watering. The bad in that is that the soil can end up staying too wet when we dig a hole. We're loosening up the soil and we're creating a place. Loose soil tends to hold water more readily than hard pan soil where the water is able to run off, if that makes any sense. So me disturbing the soil is going to make it more likely to hold moisture in place. I clean out any, I've got pine straw here as my mulch, but I'll clean that out of the way to make sure none of that gets mixed in to my planting hole. And I've got heavy clay over here, but I have done so much work on this over the years. I want to show you this real quick as I have flipped this over. This orange clay, hopefully it will focus on it. But you saw how easy I can put this trenching shovel. Now another thing, I'm using a trenching shovel. This shovel is only about 5 inches wide, and it does a much better job. If you saw me bring a regular shovel out here that's 10 or 12 inches wide, there's no possibility that I could sink that shovel in the ground like I just did. But I'm able to do that with this trenching shovel. I'm going to dig this hole about twice as wide as that container and about equal to the depth. The depth doesn't matter too much, but I am creating a space now where water is easily going to be able to enter that hole. I'm almost creating a clay pot in the ground and a place to capture that water. So it's especially important when we're fall planting like I'm doing today, or even late fall planting, that I make sure that I'm mounding the plant up some, that I'm mulching it. We definitely want to mulch because we want to protect the roots from the cold in the wintertime, but that we don't put so much mulch in that it becomes an area that just holds way too much water. So get all the rest of this clay out of this hole, and then I'll be ready. Okay. All right. Trying to go as fast as I can here. Okay. All right. This is a pine bark soil conditioner here. If you can't find pine bark soil conditioner where you live in the box stores, sometimes it's called pine fines. It's just ground up pine bark. It's actually what that plant is being grown in at the nursery. It's right here. But it's just ground up pine bark. And it works great for mixing into this clay soil that I just pulled out of this hole and allowing whatever water tries to go in that newly created clay pot in the ground for that water to pass through and not drown my plant in the first winter in the ground. So I'll put a generous amount onto this edge, and it will get mixed in as I replant it. I'm not too worried about mixing it in. I will try to break up these clumps of clay as best as I can here. If you have a sandier soil and you're worried that the area stays too dry, you can actually go with some sort of peat-based or just compost. Compost is probably your friend if you have a better draining soil and you're not worried about the plant drowning in the wintertime. Okay, so I'm gonna slide my plant out of the container. I typically, if it's loose, I like to flip the plant upside down, put my hand into the pot like this, and then flip it upside down and actually pull the pot off this way. And I typically will do a better job of holding the root ball intact doing it that way. This plant is not root bound at all. The roots have reached the edge of the container, but they haven't started wrapping around yet. So I really don't need to break this up at all. So I'm gonna set them in there like this, and then I can kind of put my shovel on the edge of the soil and that root ball, and they're pretty much level right now. And I definitely, like I say, I want to elevate this plant some so that the crown of that plant never ends up buried in soil or mulch or anything. So I'm going to pull them out. I just picked that plant up by the top. There's a lot of plants that I would not do that with, but this is a very rigid woody plant, so I didn't have any problem pulling it up that way. But be careful. Most of the time, if you don't know and you don't have a lot of experience, grab them by the root ball and pick them up and take them out, and not by the top of the plant. I'm going to put some of this mixed soil back into that hole. I'm going to set him back in there, and now it's definitely elevated above that original grade, probably an inch or two. I'm going to take my mix here, continue to break this clay up a little bit, which is blending all that material together. I'm going to kick them back around here and tamp it in as I go, making sure I don't put soil up on the stem of the plant. Tamp it in all the way around, leaving it slightly elevated. I can still see the top of the root ball. I can even see some of the roots on it. And then I'll just gently cover that up, just barely, those roots that are right along the edge. And then I'll take my pine straw and knock it back around there. I'm going to put some additional mulch in this area because this pine straw is very thin, and when I want to make sure I'm protecting the roots in the wintertime. So there's a leafy evergreen shrub planted late in the first week in November. I'm still in shorts and a short sleeve shirt. It was 37 yesterday morning. It's in the 60s this morning. That's pretty typical in the southeast to just get on this roller coaster in the fall of up and down. But fall is a long window versus our springs. Our springs, we typically wake up one morning wearing a coat, and by lunchtime, spring happens sometime and it's in the 90s. And it's plants that are planted that time of year, it's perfectly fine to plant that time of year. I plant 12 months out of the year. I don't mind planting 12 months out of the year, but plants planted in mid to late spring in the southeast require you to take care of them that first summer. Period, end of story. There's no way that you can look away from that plant in June or July or August. This Goshiki Osmanthus that I put in the ground the first week in November, the soil's moist, that plant was moist. I'm gonna water it in once. I may not have to water that plant again in my area where I get normal rainfall. I'll check on it if it got dry in December or January, but it's highly unlikely. I think I'm probably done with this plant in terms of having to really think about watering it. If it gets super, super dry sometime in late spring or summer next year, I know that it's not established enough for me to completely ignore it. But I have to do very, very little to it, especially with it mulched like it is. Okay, there's exceptions to this, and I learned this from landscaping over the years. I would get a big landscape plan, and on the plan, it would have hardscaping things. And those hardscaping things I would try to plan for the summer or the dead of winter, you know, January or February if I could, or July or August if I could. And so, you know, you quote those things separately, you go in and you do those parts of the jobs, those heavy lifting, brick and mortar type jobs. And then the next round, if there was a ton of plants on it, I would try to do all the shrubs and trees in the fall. I would leave the herbaceous perennials, the perennials that die to the ground in the wintertime and come back up in the spring. I would try to leave those for the spring if I could. And ornamental grasses that go dormant, okay? And let me show you what I mean by that. Here is a mully grass. This is Muhlenbergia capillaris. It's a grass that almost looks like cotton candy when it's in bloom. It's kind of faded at this point. It's going to sleep because it's November. This grass is in high demand, and everybody wants them in the fall when they see them with the pink blooms on them. I actually think these grasses that go to sleep like this, especially in my area where I have clay soils, I have very poor luck with planting them this time of year and not drowning them before spring. And so super, super hardy industrial perennial that I think is best planted after it's waking back up in the spring. So in mid to late April or even into May, this is the plant that could be planted upside down in July and you couldn't hurt it. But going into winter, when it's not using any water and the ground is as moist as it is right now, I tend to avoid it. So I leave grasses off my list that go dormant. Now things like this variegated liriope right here, which doesn't go dormant, or something like mondo grass or any kind of evergreen grass that's hardy in my area, I'll go ahead and put it in the ground. So I give a rule and then there's an exception. It's one thing gardening can be a little hard to learn because there's no rules that are just across the board typically. Usually there's an exception. This is herbaceous perennials that go to sleep and wake back up. The clumping ones, here's my exceptions on those. The clumping ones, like hosta, this should have been long asleep already. This is a beautiful variegated hosta here. It should have been asleep already, but it hasn't been cold enough yet to do so. Clumping perennials that are super hardy, like daylilies, irises, even peonies, hosta, those kinds of things can be dug up and divided in the fall and put back in the ground, or it can be planted as new plants. Not a problem at all. Marginal perennials like salvias and verbenas and things like that are what I'm talking about. So there are some exceptions to my not planting herbaceous perennials this time of year, and hostas and daylilies are definitely in that group. And like I say, irises and peonies, and I could probably come up with a few more, but the clumping ones that you can dig up and divide are typically really super industrial and can kind of be planted whenever. But as a rule, I would just quote the customer the hardscaping in the times of the year that I didn't want to be planting, in the worst of the winter, worst of the summer. Planting a lot of woody trees or shrubs. If it was a big job and it was 150 pieces and the customer was going to have to go around and water 150 pieces, those are the things, those are the types of jobs I would try to schedule for October, November, even into December. And then, but I would leave off the herbaceous perennials and the grasses because I'm guaranteeing them for a year when I was landscaping them. So those things where I'm getting 99% of my shrubs and trees surviving that first winter by fall planting, I'm getting 70-30 on the others. And so learned behavior over time that I just stopped including them on the quotes, and I come back in the spring and pop those things in the ground and having a full summer. There are a few exceptions even in shrubs and trees. If you know the thing you're planting is extremely marginal in your area, don't fall plant it, okay? Windmill palms, they're very hardy in my area. I always say windmill palms are hardy if they survive the first winter. And a weird answer to give, but it's true. As long as they survive the first winter, they're usually totally and completely fine in my area. And the best way to have that happen is to plant them in the spring so they have all season long to establish themselves. So if you're planting old-fashioned gardenias that have the larger leaves and you're in zone 7 and you know it's a zone 8 plant, spring plant that. Fatsia, anything where you're pushing the boundaries north of where that thing should grow, those things should be planted in the spring as well. But I just kind of wanted to cover this because I want to make sure you understand that October, November, and December, if you're in the Southeast United States, this is the time to be putting shrubs and trees in. It's nice out, you're not sweating as much, I don't have to wear sunscreen as much because you know there's overcast days and that kind of thing. And I really think that this is a something that a lot of folks moving from the Northeast into the Southeast, our cities are, you know, I live near the Raleigh area, and Raleigh is probably well over half the people that live in the city of Raleigh are from other places in the country. And probably don't know this is the best time to be really getting these bones of the landscape in, these woody trees and shrubs. So thank you very much for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little bell notification so you're alerted when I put up videos as I continue to landscape here at my house. Thanks again for watching.